Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Haynes. I'm the VP of Marketing and Strategic Initiatives at First Team, and I am joined by Michele Harrington, who is our CEO of First Team. And we're excited to have a discussion with you today on the M&A shakeup. What's really happening in the marketplace? We're going to get real. We're going to talk about agents right now and what they need to think about. There's a lot of noise going on in the environment right now. And so really finding out, strategically what their next career path looks like, if their current brokerage model is really built for the future. Are they kind of being made to fit into a box? So what this is really going to do is help brokerage owners, agents, and so forth really evaluate key factors that matter now, and that is support, technology, brand strength, independence, and overall long-term business goals. So what we're going to talk about, or should agents actually look for next? So hi, Michele. How are you? Excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, excited to be here.
So let's kind of talk about a little bit about what we're seeing, and we've been, knee deep in it. So brokerage consolidation is really, accelerating across the industry right now. What does that actually mean for agents, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, I think we should talk about why now, why consolidation now? And I think that, we've had a rough, 4 years, let's say, since 2021, I think was our last good year. And so a lot of brokerages, margins are slim
Mm-hmm.
in the brokerage industry. And a lot of brokerages have been hurting. A lot of agents have been hurting too. And it just, we kept thinking, remember, survive till 2025, and then 2025 came and went, and we're still surviving, and not, it's been painful. So I think that a lot of brokerages are like, you know what, I was gonna wait for the market to turn around, but I can't wait anymore. So a lot of consolidation has happened, not just the huge ones that we've seen, but a lot of smaller consolidations have happened as well. And it just makes sense for them to have an economies of scale. But what does an economies of scale mean for a realtor? What does that mean for the agent? And I think that when you end up consolidating and putting two big brands together, then what you end up doing is getting rid of people, processes, platforms. You end up cutting, you end up merging and cutting. I mean, that's the only reason to do something like that, is to merge and cut. And the problem I see what a lot of real estate agents are feeling in these mergers when they're part of these big companies is, are they cutting my manager? Are they cutting my favorite technology? Are they cutting my, and what happens when marketing is exactly the same with a different logo on it? Then how am I going to differentiate myself in the marketplace? So there's a lot of, for the brokerage, there's a lot of great cost cutting, saving, benefits to building a company through consolidation. For an agent, there's no benefits. I can't think of one single benefit of consolidation for the agents. They're not even like sharing listings, off market listings yet. I mean, I don't know, and I don't know if they ever will. So there's really no benefit to the agent. It's strictly a benefit to the owners.
Yeah. So let's talk about this because, like, all of a sudden, obviously, with everything going on right now, big box and everything like that, when that happens, what do you tell agents to like pay attention to? Like, what are like the top three things where you're like, hey, their spidey sense needs to go up and they need to start thinking about these things in order to consider their next move and what that means?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what happens when, I want to say, publicly traded companies or corporate companies, it's really what you optimize for.
Mm-hmm.
So independent companies optimize for agent productivity, optimize for helping agents be more productive, grow their business so that they can grow as a brokerage. What publicly traded companies optimize for are stock prices, profitability, market share,
Yep.
acquisition. Nothing that benefits the agent. There's not a single thing that they're optimizing for that is benefiting the agents, because it doesn't make sense if you increase an agent's production by 20-30%. For an independent company, like a local regional company, that is a big benefit to the company. If you're a company and a manager increases an agent's production by 20-30%, that means nothing to the bottom line. It's insignificant. So they're not going to optimize for that. They're not going to try and get an agent that's doing 5 deals a year to do 10 deals a year, or agent that's doing 20 deals a year to do 30 deals a year, or help them build a team or recruit for their team or any of that, because it just doesn't add enough to the bottom line. So they're optimizing for different things. So I think when an agent is looking around, I know if I was an agent in today's world, I'd be looking at who's going to help me take my business to the next level? Who's going to help me build a team? Who's going to help me build a company if that's what I wanted to do? And not just go to work for a company where I'm a number and, you know, a really cool office with like glass doors. I mean, that's not me. I mean, I know there are people like that. They're like, I really want an office on Main Street with big glass doors. I could give a shit about big glass doors. I want to make money. I'm in this business to make money. You know, help me grow, help me build a sustainable business so that I can change the future of my family, my income, you know, what kind of school my kids are going to go to. Like there's, you know, so I think agents get too wrapped up in like the pretty, you know, wrappers.
Yeah, it's like shiny object syndrome. They want something like sexy and everything, and they see it, and it's like a mirage almost. Once they get there, they're like, wait, I sacrificed all of this for exactly what you said, the glass doors, the beautiful building, all of that kind of stuff, right? And they don't realize it until they're in it.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter. Like that doesn't matter. So I think we get, especially in this industry, we get so distracted by pretty things, you know, and really pretty doesn't really get you anywhere. You know, if you have a coach, a manager, a person that you can rely on to hold you accountable and help you move the needle in your business, you could buy your own glass building.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why rely on somebody else to do that?
So like this is like a good part, because we just talked about like being a number and so forth, right? But what are some of the things, boots on the ground, that you're hearing of some of the major frustrations from people that are obviously coming to First Team from outside, that agents who are exploring alternatives, like what are their biggest frustrations right now?
Some of it is branding. You know, a lot of it is marketing. That they just don't get the kind of personal attention that they want to get from their marketing team. And then a lot of it is branding. Like I can't, you know, run with my brand. I can't, you know, make sure that my brand is at the forefront. And I really want to build something. And I think if you're an agent and you're just an agent, and not that there's anything wrong with just being an agent, and you're not really looking to build a team, an office, a company, then, you know, that's one way of doing things and one way of looking at things. And you might be fine just anywhere, literally anywhere. That's kind of funny. I didn't mean to.
Like, no pun intended in terms of what you just brought up.
Anywhere. But if you want to build something, then branding matters, and being able to have your own brand matters. And a lot of these companies really just don't want you to do that.
Well, they don't want you to do it. And there's a difference between having the corporate brand and the agent brand, which we talk about all the time, right? And having a brand where you are behind the agent and the agent is the brand, and being able to have that personalization so they feel like it's really them and their business, and they're powered by the corporate brand, but they aren't the corporate brand. You know what I'm saying? And being able to have that like really strongly is something that I love. So let's go into like kind of like the difference between, obviously we talked about big box and we talked about independent. So let's talk about, what do you think are the misconceptions? And you and I are going to talk a lot about this, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about independent brokerages. So let's go into that a little deeper. What do you think some of the top ones are?
The big misconception is tech. basically a lot of agents think that because a lot of independents have been around a long time. We're, at First Team, we're a 50-year-old company. So they think a 50-year-old company operates like a 50-year-old company, we still do things on, paper and spreadsheets and everything like that. And that's just not true. But it just depends on who your leadership is. Like if your leadership is not into technology, then yes, you are going to have a company that's not focusing on technology. You and I obviously are very into
extremely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we do at a good part of our day. And
Yeah.
I think that, I listen to the agents, I find out what technology they're using, and then we adopt and adapt to, with that. And we, changed our system to Follow Up Boss because we found out that our top teams and top agents were using Follow Up Boss. So I think it's a misnomer that you have to have 600 developers, because you know what? The best tech is not usually built in-house. The best tech is, vendor tech that, that keeps up with the time it's bought. And, I think that we actually have an advantage because we bought our tech, the best tech in the business right now: Luxury Presence, Follow Up Boss, Real Scout, a Skyslope, and really building in-house stuff is just probably not going to be as good as that. And then the fact that we're implementing AI into everything that we do, that we're, working with Lovable and OpenAI, and we're creating systems for our agents and landing pages and listing presentations and customized things that used to take, thousands of dollars and, 2 days to make, you can make now, and we're teaching our agents that.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. I don't know, what do you think?
I think like you said, I think it's agility.
Mm-hmm.
We are extremely agile. So like where you go to like different companies, we make agent centric decisions all the time based on the agent life cycle. So how many people were like going into all these different systems that when we're building and leading this digital transformation, which never ends, but we're constantly being like thinking like an agent and being like, does this actually make sense step by step? And does this integrate with this? And does it do this? And constantly getting that feedback, ambassador feedback, and looking at it from like an agent lifecycle perspective, not just like you said, shiny object, this is great, let's try it, but does it actually allow our agents to close more deals in less time? That's what I look about it. Like I look at that and I think we're able to make decisions on a dime for agents if something's not working. I think that's a big misconception in terms of, so our agility and our ability to pivot and us being so tech focused the way that we are. And I think the other part that's missing is how innovative we are. And again, that involves your leadership team, right? In terms of them always being innovative thinkers and pushing the envelope, of course, for best agent experiences. But I think that's another thing that is not normally thought of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when we're sitting here and they're like, oh my God, you guys were able to launch a campaign for us on this, or you were able to do this in a week. And I'm like, yeah, let's just get stuff done. So I think that's it. I think the other part is the access to the senior leadership team. And I think it's also kind of what we talked about with the individual career paths versus putting it and being like, okay, you're this GCI, you need to follow this path. So that's what I also love, which I think is very different.
Yeah, I mean, what the most fun thing I get to do every day is helping entrepreneurs be more entrepreneurial. I started as a real estate agent. I started my own company. I started my own escrow company, my mortgage company, my real estate company. I grew that. I bought other companies through acquisitions. I was a franchise. I was an independent. I've kind of done the whole, realm of anything residential real estate. And I love to help other agents who really want to build things outside of just a day-to-day real estate business. And that's to me the most fun thing. And I think it's really hard to do that if you hadn't done it. And when I look at a lot of these, like the big boxes and stuff like that, their leadership just never sold real estate. You know what I mean? They don't really know what an agent goes through every day. They can have an idea, but they don't know. So I would hate, my military background, I would hate to have a sergeant or a sergeant major over me that's, never been a corporal or a private. You know what I mean? There's a reason that sergeant majors, that's an E10. You start at E1, E2, E3. You know what I mean? You don't want to follow somebody into battle that's never been
It was never, no,
and so like I said, these are things I think of, like if I was an agent in the field right now, these are things that I would look at. Who is my leadership? Have they been in battle? What have they done? And then can they teach me to do the same thing? And especially if you're looking at, I want to build a team, or I want to build an office, or I want to build a company. I want to be with somebody who's done that, been there, done that, and willing to help me do that. And I think that's a huge difference in like how independents think of things, because we can do things that are outside the box. You know what I mean? Helping agents build companies, that's outside the box. I mean, they're going to be like, it's not going to happen.
I think the other part of it is, you mentioned that I went to lunch with one of a great agent yesterday, Shar, and he's amazing. And we were just talking, and like exactly what you said, he's like, hey, we want to grow our business. I'm thinking about this from a marketing perspective. And when I'm looking at it, and you and I talk about this a lot, where I'm like, where do you want to be? Because depending on, I'm not going to recommend the same thing to everybody. So I'm like, what are your growth goals? And let's work backwards in order to do that. And I think that's something that we do. We analyze that framework, and then we make recommendations, and we kind of go in and we kind of diagnose in a way. And then we make recommendations that's actually going to grow your business. We're not recommending the same solutions for every single person. So, because I'm like, what may work for you is definitely not going to work for somebody else. So, being able to do that and have those conversations, but again, that's based on us knowing what to do, testing it, seeing what actually is working, and then being able to do that versus them meeting with somebody and they're like, yeah, we're just going to give you the same template that everybody else gives you for that community, which I love.
Yeah.
So let's kind of talk about, we'll go down a list because we have a list of basically 7 things that we've broken into categories. When an agent is evaluating brokerages, what are some of the things that are going to be on their scorecard, right? And should be on their scorecard top of mind. And a lot of these questions don't always come up. But let's kind of go start down the line. So one of the things that I want to talk about is like support overall. Because when we're looking at support, obviously, who do you call when you need help? That's one. But is support proactive or reactive? So for me, it's important that I know who specifically to contact within the organization that's going to help me with that particular need or question that I have versus going through every single support hotline, right? You know what I'm saying? So that's a big one for me. But let's talk about a little bit more on growth and building career paths with you, and what do you think they need to ask in terms of that?
Yeah, I think there's so many different models out there now, and kind of unfortunately, we're getting smaller because of all the mergers and acquisitions. But there's I want to say, like, the EXP and Real is like the do-it-yourself model, the DIY. You know what I mean? You're gonna DIY your career, and you're not going to get any help or any support, and that's fine. I do believe that there is in an industry that's as diverse as we are, there is like room for a lot of different models. There's the Redfin model where you get your leads are fed to you, and there's a team model where you don't have to fish, you just get fed leads, and you can be a team member, and you make less money, but you are constantly getting leads. I think there's a place for all that. So it really, I think when you're in real estate and when you're trying to determine what you want to be when you grow up. You really have to look at like, what are your strengths and what do you really want to do? Would you rather not have to prospect at all and just put people in your car? And if that's the case, then join a team. I think teams are amazing. We have so many amazing teams. And I think that there's nothing wrong with spending your entire career. It's definitely nothing wrong with starting there. And actually, if I was a brand new agent, that's exactly what I would do. I would start on a high functioning, highly accountable, organized team. And I would be a team member and maybe stay there forever. Or maybe, you decide after a while, you learn the ropes, you have past clients, you move on your own. And then maybe after you move on your own for a little while, you start your own team. I mean, there's so many different ways to go when you're looking at, what you want to be. And I think that if you're ambitious and you want to build and you feel like you don't want to DIY it, then an independent regional broker, and I can't speak for all independent regional brokers, but I know us, we're hyper focused on helping agents do that. So it really is, really just doing like a self-analysis and determining, do I want to DIY? Do I want to just do it myself? Do I want to have accountability and a coach, which is like an indie? Or do I want to be on a team and have my leads fed to me? There's so many different ways. I think that it's a great kind of use of time to sit down and really think about where you want to be, what you want to eventually be doing in 20, 30 years. The one benefit, I have to say this, to building a team and eventually building an office or a company is the ability to slow down. I mean, that's, when you think about like long term, what I want to do in 20, 30 years, some people would say, I'd rather poke my eyes out than have to coach or train or manage real estate agents. And if that's you, then forget about this path. But if managing and training and coaching real estate agents is somewhat attractive to you, or you like that, then you could build something that you can sell. You can build something that you can slow down with. One of, the best things that I did was building my company before I joined First Team. And it really gave me the ability to have weekends off, have nights off. I didn't have to sell real estate anymore. And some people that's like, no, I want to sell real estate forever. And some people that's, yeah, I don't want to sell real estate anymore. And, so it's really like looking into the future and determining, and where you go matters. It does. Because are you really going to be able to build something without any guidance at all? Maybe. There are people that do, for sure, but it's probably a little easier when you have somebody that's been there, done that, to help you build it. So, like I said, when you're choosing and you're thinking and you're looking at the landscape, you really need to analyze yourself and figure out what you want to be doing in 10, 20 years. That was a long answer to that question.
No, I mean, it was a long answer because like a long answer is needed for determining growth.
It's an important question.
Like it's a long question. So that's okay. Some of the other ones are much easier, but that's okay. We talked about this. I think everybody has technology. We know that, right? But I think you really need to think about is, does it create efficiency or complexity in terms of your business, right? Because a brokerage can roll out any type of technology suite that's there. If you don't use it, it doesn't matter. If you use it, but it doesn't make you more productive and it takes more time, that it doesn't matter either, right? So I think it's one, are agents actually using the technology that they offer? And ask them that. Or are they going out and they have these high tech fees, but they're out, and if you look at the top agents and some of the other ones that you aspire to be or work with, they're all using a completely different tech suite than what is available. That's a problem. That's a problem. And I think you really need to factor that in.
And I think that's the problem with home built tech We were home built tech for a really long time.
You were,
The
yeah,
problem with that is that you have to, you're not going to change it as often as a
yeah,
tech company is going to change their platform and upgrade their platform. Or at some point, that platform is not going to be the best platform, and then you could switch it. But when you built your platform and your platform ends up being not the best platform, you're not going to switch it. You have way too much invested in it. So I think that, I understand the home built tech, proprietary tech. I think that some companies think if they have really good proprietary tech, their agents aren't going to leave. That's just a dumb assumption. That's just a dumb assumption. Nobody. I've never met. I spend my, I spent the last 20 years meeting and talking to real estate agents.
yeah.
I've never, ever had an agent say, I'm not going to leave that company because their technology is so good. Not going to happen.
No,
So,
you've
yeah.
never had that. And we've talked about this where we're like buy versus build, right? Because you have to remain competitive with all the feature releases and everything that's in there. And then you can compare. If you're building, there's a certain point where the ROI goes downhill.
Mhm.
Because if you're building, even though you may have the best of the best or you recruit the best of the best to work in a house with you, they are still not always, some are, but not always up to date on the key things that are happening in terms of the overall SaaS marketplace and what is changing. And when we can sit here, for example, from technology standpoint, and we're switching features and updating features like that based on the different strategic partners that we work with, that's great. That's how we're truly adding to the agent lifecycle and making it better. So I think you have to think about that. And then I also think you have to think about exactly what you said is when you're going there and they say we've built the best of the best, how much of that are they actually shipping? So how much is that is actually built on features for agents that never make it, that never actually are launched? They're just like building things to tinker with things. How many are actually shipped and in the agent's hands to utilize it per year? Because I can guarantee you probably like two
Yeah.
launches per year, if
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And agents are like, why am I spending all this money? Um, okay, this is like this is near and dear to my heart. So this is the marketing part. So let's talk about behind the agent. Let's talk about corporate brand versus agent brand. And let's talk about more about marketing and agents building their brand. So what I love about this is you and I have talked about this. We have the combination of both because First Team is a legacy brand, so we have the experience, we're known. But we've also become a modern brand where we're respected and understood by agents. And you really need to have both, right? Which is a great thing for agents to have. And what I love is are we sitting are with the bigger brands, you look here and you're like, okay, are you building another piece, another campaign? Are you building for your portfolio to launch another market? Or are you building it for agents to actually utilize and grow their business? And I think that's something that people and brokerages need to take very seriously because you do have to have the brokerage brand because the brokerage brand allows you to attract the clients for your agents, right? Like you need to have both. But I think I think the key part of behind the agent and what we've done really well with our teams is making them the hero of the story. And I think that is the most important thing because you look at all the successful brands, the Nikes of the world are athletes, the hero of the story, the Airbnb, the guest is the hero of the story. And allowing them to be the hero of their story for their clients, I think is key. And I think that's something that we do much differently than anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, the bottom line is nobody knows who these big, mega agents work for. Like, I don't know. I'm
They
just thinking,
don't know.
like,
Yeah, they
is,
don't know.
John Stanley, is he still a big agent? I don't know. But
Yeah.
I don't know who he works for. Like, company, maybe. But it's like they don't know. They just know John. And I think that, you know, I think a lot of companies don't want that to be the case. They want their brand, they're going to list because you're with Century 21. Like, no, that was back in the 70s. That is
Yeah.
not how it is anymore. And
Yeah.
so why even bother? I have a good, to me, have a good brand that the agents know. If I
Yeah.
go work there, I am
Yeah.
going to achieve better things. Not a brand that the consumer knows, because the consumers don't care. They care who is in their
Agent.
marketplace, that's an expert in the business, that can help them do the biggest transaction of their life. They don't care if they're with First Team or Coldwell Banker or anything else. But the agents, the brand should be what the agents know. If I go work there, I'm going to be DIY. If I go work there, I'm going to be able to build a team. If I go work there, I'm going to, be totally on my own. I mean, so I think branding nowadays in the brokerage world is for the agents to understand what they're going to get and what their career is going to be like at a certain brand. But as far as the consumers go, the agent's the brand. So I think behind the agent was a perfect
It was,
way for us to really say that, you
yeah,
know?
I love that because like when we're doing behind the agent, like our job is to make our agents be seen as true advisors to their clients. I mean, if that's what we're boiling it down to, right? Which I absolutely love. And then like you said, when we're talking about agents and they're looking at a brand, the brand, our brand is the sum total of experiences they have with us. Doesn't matter what it is. So that is such an important platform. And I love that because we do make sure that our agents are seen as advisors. And that's one of like my favorite parts of the job is being able to do all that kind of fun stuff. Um, let's talk about culture because this is another big one. And this is huge because this encompasses everything that we've talked about. So I think it's deeper where agents really need to ask, do they have a voice? But I think it runs deeper than that. So let's discuss your view on that.
Yeah. So when you're looking, in the landscape and you're a realtor and you want to be somewhere where you're seen, you're heard, you have a family around you, that cares about you. I think that's hugely important to a lot of real estate agents. Some agents not so much. So again, you have to determine who you are and what you want to be. I think some of the best cultures are built on teams. I think that I look at the teams in our organization, and they just have amazing cultures, amazing leadership, one-on-one coaching. They're just great at building and helping feel like a family. And I think part of it is because they're smaller. So now, if you don't want to be on a team, you want to be in an office that has that same feeling. And I think it's all about the leader of that office. So, now some offices are just like, I look at our San Clemente office and they're a family. I mean, they go to each other's houses for Christmas, and, they celebrate, you know, um, holidays together, and go out and have happy hour just without the manager even necessarily. Like, they would be a family office no matter who the manager was. That's like a gem. And we have those all over the organization. But the manager, most of the time, is the one that's kind of leading that culture. And it's really important. I think it's really important to go, if you're going to be in the office every day, especially, to be able to go into an office where you feel good about where you're going every day, because it's a hard job. We have a hard job to do. We're prospecting, we're getting turned down, we're getting beat out, we're getting, showing a client for 3-4 months and they end up buying from a builder and didn't tell us, and all those things.
A lot of rejection. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of rejection. You don't want to go into an office where everybody's uppity and stuck up, or mean or competitive, or, you want to go into an office where everybody gives you a hug and a high five, and, you get to go to an office meeting that makes you feel good about being in this business. And so I do think it's really important. And I absolutely recommend anybody, who's looking at going to one real estate company or the other, go to the office meeting, absolutely, and see who you're going to be in there with, and see how the office meetings are run, and are they, good or not good. And I think that matters a lot. Culture definitely matters to most people, and that's something, like I said, you have to figure out as a person, do I care?
And most do, because
Yeah.
I'm sorry if you're spending 80% of your time doing this every day and every week. I think it would. Um, Here's one that I think really is important, is the senior leadership component. And you and I have talked a lot about this. Is number one is, can leadership make decisions quickly? And do you know about it, for example, before it's in a press release? So let's talk about that a little bit, because like we said, like, we can make decisions quickly and pivot. And I think when you're looking at a larger company, or you're looking at some of these others, it's either board approval, it's either they have to announce it during their earnings cycle, whatever that may be, quarterly results, those kinds of things. And it also may not be in the roadmap. So I think so that's part. And then I think the other part, which is key, is to the senior leadership team knowing that they're innovative and having access. So I think it's agility and access. So let's talk about access a little bit more too, because we're involved in that, right? Like a lot more than others are.
Yes, I think that I'm involved with a lot of the agents, and team leaders day to day. I get calls and texts, and I respond all the time. And I think that that's a definite advantage. I think that one thing, when I sold my company to First Team, my company had 300 agents, and First Team has 2,000 agents. So I was really concerned about selling to what I considered a very large company, like I considered First Team to be corporate.
Back then, like you're like, this is too big for me at this point.
Yeah, I was worried about being micromanaged. I was worried about the bureaucracy of the company, and I was so over the moon happy that, when I managed my first office, I realized, like, I really have a lot of say in how this office is run. And I can really listen to my agents in my office and run things the way that is best for a South Orange County, California office. And there was no, like, really heavy-handed corporate structure that was saying how things should be, and that, in a bigger sense. So that was like a huge relief to me. And the fact that I could call anybody, the owner, and talk to him about whatever I needed to talk about, was a huge relief to me too. So I think of the same thing as an agent, like, I would never myself, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I would never want to work for a big, corporation with a board of directors or shareholders, God forbid, and have to, like, answer to shareholders, or, you know what I mean? I mean, no way. I don't want it. I will not ask for permission. Like, I do not ask for permission now. Like,
so let's talk about that.
Because and when you're an agent, do you have to ask for permission to do things? Like, and I think at certain companies, yes, you do. And that's, in my mind, if you're an entrepreneur, like, no, I'm not asking for permission. I'm going to do what I think is right and what's best for the company, and I'll tell you what I did later.
Okay, so that brings in exactly where I wanted you to talk about, because you do that for agents, but you also do that for our leadership team, right? Where we're basically allowed to, like, sitting here, we're like, we all know where we're rowing, right? But you encourage us to make the best decision and ask forgiveness later. And I think that's empowering. So that's empowering not only to our internal teams, but empowering to agents as well. So it works both ways, which I love.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of it like, I have a couple managers that have, like, mini bars in their office. I'm like, just don't tell me. Yeah, don't ask for permission. Do what you know is right. I trust the people that work for me. I trust my managers. I trust my staff. I'm not going to micromanage. Do what you think is right to do. And that's, in my opinion, that's an organization, if you have trustworthy people, and we do, that is, it means something. that when you give people the ability to run their businesses and their offices and their real estate business the way they want to and way that they think is best for them and the company.
Yeah, which I love. Okay, so let's talk about wealth creation, right? And let's go into scaling long-term value. And this kind of goes into deeper from the agent life cycle and where they come in, like in building those career paths and what you're passionate about. So let's talk a little bit about how we help them do that when they come in, whether they come in as and they want to be a team leader and how that works, and how we get them to where they want to be.
The one thing we talk about, because we started about mergers and acquisitions, is when Compass bought Anywhere, what did the agent work and get out of that? You know what I mean? They got nothing. If you really are an entrepreneur and you want to build something that is sellable later. I mean, there's a lot of ways to create wealth in real estate. There's investing in real estate, obviously, and that's a great way to create wealth. And, there's nothing wrong with, I'm just going to, make 500,000, live off of 200,000 and take 300,000 and invest it every year in the stock market. I mean, there's so many different ways, but a great way, if you're entrepreneurial, is to build a company. And when I built my company, I didn't build it to sell it. I wasn't even planning on selling it. I was young. I wasn't ready to retire. But I got a really good offer from First Team. And, it was a 7-figure offer for something that I built from zero, like from scratch with like nothing,
Yeah.
And I love that. I love to help people do that. And it's the founder of Walmart, Sam Walton, he said that basically he didn't invest in anything. He'd never invested in the stock market. He never invested in real estate. He invested in Walmart. And if you have one great business, if you can build a great business, then that's all you need to invest in. It's determining what you want to be. Do I want to invest in the stock market, which is somebody else's business? Do I want to invest in real estate, which is great? Or do I want to invest in my ability to build something great? And if you want to invest in your ability to build something, then we've created an environment where you can do that. And it's kind of rare in the real estate industry, but we figured out a way to help agents transition from being agents to team leaders to owners of their own company. And it's, I think, the coolest thing that we've ever done. It's the coolest thing I've ever done. And I love doing it, and I love helping people really succeed. And it's not an easy path, but it is a rewarding path. And at the end of it, you have something that's wealth creation. You have something that you can sell. You didn't just work for 30 years to walk away and throw away your open house signs.
Elegantly put, but spot on. I love that. If we're sitting here and we had to talk about what you and I think, what do you think in terms of what do you think the most successful brokerages are going to look like a few years from now, down the line?
Well, it's really cool what's going on with AI. I'm very into figuring out how that fits into the brokerage in general. And I think it's going to change a lot of the way we do business. I think that it's help a lot with marketing, content creation, video creation, research. I think that big teams and big agents who are doing a lot of business are going to be able to do more business. The onesie twosie agents are going to suffer because it's, the really, really good ones are going to be able to do more. So how does that change as far as the brokerage? It's definitely going to be not the 80-20 rule, but the 90-10 or the 95-5 rule. And then how that's going to affect the brokerage is if AI allows me to do everything that you're providing me as far as technology goes, and I could do it easier and cheaper just by talking to my computer, then I don't need your tech platform. I don't need this department or that department. What I will always need is a coach and the ability to grow, somebody that's going to hold me accountable if I'm ambitious. And if it's going to be the 95-5 rule, then that 5% of agents are ambitious. So there's going to be companies like ours who really strive on coaching and accountability and helping their agents get to the next level and build these mega teams, because we're going to be dominated by mega teams. And then there's going to be the companies who by them would have just sold to other companies, because I don't think there's really a place for the mediocre middle anymore.
No, it's going to disappear. You're going to have those that, like you said, like the top 10% that are thriving, and then the ones that are barely survive. You're going to have the surviving category, and then they're just going to go. I think it's just going to happen where it's, going to go like that. This is one of my favorite questions. So if you were building your business from scratch today, right, knowing everything that you know, and you kind of have more of an advantage than most people in terms of this, why would you choose, what would make you choose an independent in this case over every other option out there right now?
Well, I made a lot of mistakes in growing my real estate career and my real estate business. So I definitely can talk about what not to do. Probably the biggest mistake I made was joining a franchise. I bought a franchise. It was a Anywhere franchise, and I thought I needed the name to build my real estate company. And the only thing they really did was give me like a platform and take my money. And I didn't get any help with marketing. I didn't get any help with legal. I didn't get, somebody to be my broker or file checking or anything that you would need to run a brokerage. They did not do. They just gave me a place where I could put in my commission so that they could take their, 6 to 8%. It was the biggest ripoff. It was a 10-year contract. When my contract was up, it was a 10-year contract. And then when my contract was up, because I bought another company in San Diego, and I signed a new contract in San Diego, it auto-renewed somehow, I guess because I didn't read everything. My contract's in Orange County. So when I tried to leave in 10 years, they sued me. So it was definitely 100% the biggest mistake of my life. I would say if you're trying to build something great, then what we're doing is really smart. I mean, we are supporting the agent, we're recruiting for them, we're helping them train, we're giving them the legal, we're giving them the commission processing, we're doing their file checking, but they can still build their own company. Whereas like in a franchise, you still have to do your file checking, you still have to do your marketing, you still have to do your recruiting, and you're still paying all that money to New Jersey. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. And I said this after I ended up in court with Anywhere. I said, I cannot believe that a franchise still exists. It makes zero sense for the franchisor. It makes it franchisee. It makes all the sense for the franchisor. I still can't believe that model exists. It is a huge, huge ripoff. So, and I know a guy that we were talking to down in San Diego, and we were talking to him about affiliating with us, and he ended up buying a Remax franchise, and now he's like 2 years into it, and he's like, "Oh, this is a bad idea." I was like, I told you it's a bad idea. There's got 8 years left. You can't just walk away. Literally, you can't walk away. It's like the mafia. They will come after you and kill you. So, just don't do that. If you want to build a company, please talk to me first. I made all the mistakes in the world and some real doozies. So, I'll give you all like the skinny on everything.
I love that. The unfiltered, truthful version, which I absolutely love. How I
really feel about it.
But that's great. So to recap today, we basically talked about 7 things, 7 categories that agents should ask, right? And I loved our conversation. So if you're an agent out there, these are the things that you need to ask. How are business decisions made, and are they made fast? Number 1. How much access will I have to leadership, which Michele went over great. What support is included, and are the values promised actually delivered in what you get, which we went into depth on, I think. How do top producers grow, which is great. What percentage of agents actually use the technology? So when you're looking at the tech stack, please ask that question. And then how are recruiting, retention, and agent success measured in terms of the brokerage for agents and large teams? And then one question that we haven't talked about, which I know you and I are passionate about, which I think is important, is what happens after I join, right? Because I think agents get into the honeymoon and it's like, it's 30 days, it's 6 months, I still feel loved, I feel great, right? But I like to know what's going on at 1 year, what's going on at 2 years. Do you have golden handcuffs? Do you not? What is really happening? Because that's when the honeymoon phase wears off, right? So that's the only thing that I would add is like really understand that process. And if they can't articulate it, then they don't have a process.
Yep. 100%.
At all. Anything else you'd like to add? I think we covered it, right?
No, I think that, it's an interesting time just in the industry. I mean, for sure. It's noise. It doesn't mean anything. It's just, it doesn't affect your business, and you should be concentrating on things that affect your business. So I think that really sitting down and thinking, how do I want this to look in 10 years or 20 years? And then, figuring out where's the best place for you to grow.
Yeah, I agree with you. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.